One and go. I call this May 11, 2021 virtual zoning meeting of the Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners to order. We will have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Catherine Varecki. Please unmute yourself or you'll have to do it all over again.
Okay, sorry. I hope you can hear me now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And now, Lucas Tafoya, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? I know that there are, in the interest of time. So tell us how we're going to work this today.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is Lucas Tafoya, Director for Planning and Development Services. You have before you 4 appeals of a CPC approval for a special use permit for a winery and various other uses. Neighboring properties have invoked the 20% rule. This requires an extraordinary majority vote to uphold that CPC decision. And each vote needs to be, each appeal needs to be voted individually. And staff has proposed a format to reduce the overall time and ensure that the an opportunity for everyone to be heard. And this is in accordance with the BCC procedures.
Okay. Julianne, should we go over what that format is, or do I read that later?
Yes, so for the record, I would read the new format along with the appeals procedures.
Shall I do that, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. For the first one, COA 2021-005, CSU 21-0013, we are proposing that planning staff has 5 minutes, the appellant has 7 minutes, the opponent has 5 minutes, the appellant has a rebuttal of 3 minutes, and staff has a closing comment of 1 minute. And then for the remaining 4, they are the same, I believe. So that would be planning staff 1 minute, the appellant 7 minutes, opponent 5 minutes, appellant rebuttal 3 minutes, and staff closing comments 1 minute.
Okay, thank you so much. And so I will move to approve the proposed hearing format with amended appeals procedure time limits. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Benson. All in favor, raise your hand. And Madam County Clerk Linda Stover, good to see you. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Barboa.
Aye.
Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada.
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye. So
Roll
that
call.
passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, on to approval of minutes. I move to approve the April 6, 2021 zoning meeting minutes. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Casada. All in favor, wave your hand. Thank you. And County Clerk Linda Stover, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa. Commissioner Benson.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada.
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you. That passes unanimously. And now on to our appeals. We will now proceed with the appeals and appeals procedures as follows. And please forgive me while I find my appeals procedures. Okay. The next item on the agenda is appeals. The first appeal is the special use permit for a winery and for the production, sale, and wholesale of distilled spirits. The A1 uses of privately owned recreational lake fishing and incidental facilities. The specific O1 uses of bed and breakfast houses, and the specific C2 uses of indoor and outdoor amusement enterprises and outdoor live entertainment. This is an appeal based on the evidence in the record. Ordinarily, no new evidence will be accepted before the county commission. However, in the event that new evidence or testimony is accepted, the clerk will swear any witnesses who may testify concerning it. The order of presentation and time limits as set forth in our rules of procedure are, as Mr. Tafoya said, planning staff, 5 minutes, appellant, 7 minutes, opponent, 5 minutes, appellant rebuttal, 3 minutes, and staff closing comments, 1 minute. And then board discussion and questions, and then we take action and vote. Please be aware that the time limits for each side, appellants and opponents, is the total time allowed regardless of the number of persons signed up to speak. So each side will need to decide how to divide the total minutes among the speakers. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The commission is to act as judges of the particular facts concerning the parties before it, applying existing law to the facts. The commission is to base its decision only on the facts presented to it by the parties, not on any facts supposed by it that may exist outside the proceedings. The commission is to act with impartiality toward each party, applying the law to the facts without favoritism or bias or the mere desirability of a given result. A commissioner with a financial or family interest in the outcome of a quasi-judicial proceeding should disclose any potential conflict in accordance with these rules and should, if necessary, recuse him or herself from the proceedings. The commission is, in rendering its decision, should make a clear statement of what it believes to be the relevant facts and why those facts led to its decision. Each commissioner shall avoid ex parte communications with parties bringing cases before the commission. However, such communications that occur may be cured by the procedures stated in rule number 4. We will begin with staff's presentation. Elvira Lopez.
Julie, if I may share my screen, I would like to share a map of the subject site while I present.
Okay, go ahead.
It says that I'm disabled.
Okay, try again.
Okay, here we go. Okay, are you all seeing the map of the subject site?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Piscotti and Commissioners. My name is Elvira Lopez. I am a program planner with Bernalillo County Planning and Development Services Department. The following is information about the land use request being appealed today. The subject site is 31.4 acres in size, located at 11033 4th Street Northwest at the northernmost area of the county and surrounded by Sandia tribal lands. The subject site, and it's this area outlined in red. The subject site is currently zoned A1 and for a special use permit. More specifically, 11 acres of the site already has a special use permit, and that would be these lower 2 tracts. And that special use permit is for approved for a winery for the production, sale, and wholesale of distilled spirits, for the specific O1 uses of office and bed and breakfast house, and the specific C2 uses of amusement enterprise that would allow for event center for receptions and meetings. This special use permit was approved in 2018. The purpose of the request here, the land use being considered here in these appeals, is to obtain a special use permit to expand the area of the subject site already approved for winery distillery in 2018 in order to include the Shady Lakes property, which is shown here. You could see these darker green areas are the actual lakes, and some of that property also extends further as you get closer to 4th Street. As such, the current request increases the overall acreage of the subject site from 11 to 31 acres. So the current property size is 31 acres. The vision for the property is to construct the main winery distillery building at the southern end of the site, the same location where it was approved in 2018. The idea is to leverage the existing and proposed features of the entire 31-acre site for making and growing wine, to allow for wine tasting, and to allow for outdoor events like receptions and meetings at specific locations on the site. The vision is also to allow for the continued use of the Shady Lakes facilities for fishing and family-friendly usage. This request also proposes new uses related to the winery distillery operations that were not identified in the 2018 request, such as warehouse and restaurant use. The outdoor live entertainment use is also a new feature that was not part of the 2018 approval. Some background to the current land use request. The land use case being appealed today was first approved at the February 3rd, 2021 County Planning Commission public hearing, where the CPC unanimously voted to approve the case. The approval was for a special use permit for a winery and the production, sale, and wholesale of distilled spirits. The A1 uses of privately operated recreational lake, fishing, and incidental facilities, the specific O1 uses of bed and breakfast houses, and the specific C2 uses of indoor and outdoor amusement enterprise, again, to allow for events like receptions and meetings, and outdoor live entertainment on the subject site. The CPC recommended approval based on the main finding that the request reflects rural character while supporting an agriculture reliant use. Furthermore, the CPC found that the request preserves large, open, rural areas of land consistent with policies of the Comprehensive Plan and North Valley Area Plan, is appropriate for the area, and is unique because it enables the preservation of the historic Shady Lakes. Evidence of neighborhood support was provided. Subsequent to the February 3rd CPC approval, 4 appeals were filed to oppose the CPC decision to approve the land uses. These appeals were scheduled for the March 9th, 2021 BCC hearing. At that hearing, the commission voted to defer the appeals to the May 11th hearing here today. The purpose of the deferral was to allow the case, that is the CSU 2020-0013, to be remanded back to the CPC for the limited purpose of allowing the County Planning Commission to swear in witnesses from the February 3rd CPC hearing, and then to revote on the case. On April 7th, 2021, the CPC unanimously voted to approve the case again, CSU 2020-0013, based on the sworn-in testimony that had been presented at the February 3rd, 2021 CPC hearing. Before you today, there are 4 appeals of the CPC decision to approve this land use. The appellants of the first appeal are the North Edith Corridor Neighborhood Association, led by Evelyn Harris, and the Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association, led by Pat Hauser. And my understanding is that Mr. Hauser will be presenting on their appeal following. Opponents to the appeal are the applicants of the land use case for CSU 2020-0013. The opponents are Tinney Corporation, FBO Vara, LLC, represented by JAG Planning. In closing, staff recommended approval of the special use permit, and the CPC agreed, voting unanimously to approve this case at the February 3rd, 2021 hearing, and again on April 7th, 2021, based on sworn testimony. The case was approved based on 16 findings and 16 conditions of approval that are there to assure a high quality development that is in alignment with standard development requirements and plans and policies of the county. This concludes my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this time? And I can't see all of you, so if any of the commissioners have a question, please just jump in. Okay, it looks like no questions. So next we will go on to appellants, and that'll be 7 minutes. And do we need to have people sworn in at this point?
Yes, Madam Clerk, just a basic swearing in of the participants telling the whole truth.
Okay, now, Julie, is that going to be everybody at once, or do I have names? I don't know.
It'll be everybody at once, everybody that's currently in this meeting.
Okay, could I ask everybody that's currently in the meeting that's going to be testifying to raise their right hand? I swear that the testimony I'm going to give is the truth to the best of my knowledge.
Swear the testimony I'm about to give is
Okay.
to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. So sworn.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to check with our attorney, Michael Garcia, is that adequate? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. And so let's see, who is the first up? I have Maria Dyers from North Edith Corridor Association, and Pat Hauser. So you have 7 minutes, and you can split that up any way you'd like.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Pat Hauser, president of the Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association, just south of the proposed agenda item for today's meeting. I have lived in this neighborhood for 54 years, and our neighborhood association has been in existence since 1995. I have been given permission to speak on behalf of the FAR North Edith Corridor Association that also has residents that qualify for the 20% rule as adjacent property owners that have written objections to this project. I have also worked with the Alameda North Valley Association as well as the North Valley Coalition. In the past, we have worked with Commissioner O'Malley and former commissioners on such projects as the silent crossings for the rail runner, the roundabout, and other impact projects such as high-speed internet and enhanced phone service for this area. This specific request has never been supported by a published business plan or comprehensive information about this monstrous industrialized center and the proposed production levels and long-range goals or plans for opening a distillery production in an A1 zone location. The revised plan showed almost the originally proposed uses, but the descriptions were skillfully wordsmithed at the recommendation from County Planning in their memo dated December 14th, 2020. Items should be changed to incidental or ancillary. Items such as package sales is now tasting rooms, and a distillery is now incidental to a winery. We are gravely concerned regarding the institutional bias that is readily visible in the past approval of these requests. There were and continue to be complications with the previous special use permit regarding easement access. Bernalillo County has no jurisdiction regarding easement rights and laws. This issue alone is paramount in denial of this request as it has been submitted. This flawed decision has caused a financial, emotional, and psychological lifelong impact on the Garcia family. This request does not comply with the intent and specific wording in Resolution 116-86. In each specific category, it is apparent the applicant is utilizing the flawed 2018 special use permit as a Trojan horse for this industrialized project. Policy F states, Resolution 11618 clearly and emphatically states, a land use change of zone shall not be approved where some of the permissive uses in the land would be harmful to adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the community. Let the record show that there is no municipal water or sewage service available for this entire site, let alone there has been no known environmental impact study done for such a site. The unalterable fact outline on water usage for wine production, it can take up to 800 gallons of water to produce 1 gallon of wine. Considering that coupled with the current trend in drought conditions, domestic well usage would be in the millions of gallons of precious water for this complex. There have been no substantial plans of any water treatment plants or sewage processing, both of which have a direct and dire immediate impact on adjacent property owners. We have submitted over 100 documented letters and signed petitions from residents opposed to this monstrous industrialized center. No specific resources have been proposed to protect our precious groundwater from the different uses in this industrialized center, utilizing fertilizers, herbicides, toxic chemicals that will be required for the various production of untold products. Policy D 11686, land which is suited for agricultural use should be maintained to the extent feasible in agriculture production and is discouraged from non-agricultural development. Hardly the case here. The expanded site plans to cover almost 31.4 acres and only 4.3 acres is designated for agricultural use to meet the loose requirements for this request. That is only 13.6% of the entire property. Policy A states, rural areas as shown on the plan map shall generally retain the rural character. This is clearly not the case with this spot zone inference for a highly industrialized center in the midst of rural pristine North Valley. Policy B states, development in rural areas shall be compatible with the natural resource capacity. Hardly the case with the Rio Grande in peril, as New Mexico water managers warn communities to prepare for a bleak future. Live entertainment with amplified sound and the amount of entertainment is problematic. The original approval was for no amplified sound. We're currently bombarded with amplified sound from El Pintos, the Sheriff Posse Grounds, Balloon Park, Pueblo Sandia Resort. We found the Bernalillo County Noise Ordinance to be basically unenforceable. Who do you call and how is it enforced? It is abundantly clear that this project, past and present, have been totally lacking in meaningful and accurate business plan. This has been exacerbated with the various site plans failing to properly demonstrate how the various components and dimensions will be in compliance with the various state, county, and national codes. Since the area is in a rural location, not serviced by municipal water or sewage, it has been designated as an entertainment venue with multiple tasting rooms and a winery type resort bodes the question. How will the various 124,000 square feet of roof be fire protected? Based on Bernalillo County Fire Marshal data, there will be a minimum of 496,000 gallons of water in storage for an area not supported by municipal water system. Once again, there is no specific documentation on the site plan as to the size, shape, and function of the mandatory compacts fire flow requirements. In closing, this request does not comply with the intent or the specific wording in Resolution 11686. This request falls short in specific areas of design, such as environmental protection required and needed access as outlined by Bernco Fire Department and precious water resources with the Rio Grande surrounding communities in peril due to the prolonged drought. There will be continued attempts to invalidate our fact-based opposition to this project. Please don't destroy the last pristine land in the far North Valley with a stroke of a pen. This will have a forever impact on our precious properties we have all worked hard for years to enjoy without this industrialized monster in our backyards. I ask for your support in not approving this request on behalf of 119 friends, neighbors, and adjacent property owners in the long-standing rural community in the far North Valley. Thank you for your time. I stand for questions.
Okay. I think we just move on to opponent, or can we ask questions?
Madam Chair, you absolutely can ask questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Hauser? Okay. Seeing none, then let's move on to opponent. Tinney Corp. FBO Vara LLC, 5 minutes. Speaker JAG Planning and Sarah Candelaria from NM Wildlife Federation. So please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Board of County Commission, my name is Juanita Garcia and I'm with JAG Planning and Zoning, agent for Tinney Corp. FBO Vara LLC. We respectfully request the denial of COA 2021-0005 and ask that you uphold the County Planning Commission's approval of VARA's 2020 special use permit, since all of the criteria for a special use permit had been carefully considered during the review process of this application. Our full response to this appeal can be found on page 690 of your packet. The current proposal was made possible when the applicant purchased the area known as Shady Lakes and several other abutting lots. The applicant is now requesting approval to incorporate the 2018 Barra SUP with the recently acquired land to basically spread the winery across an area that is approximately 3 times the size of the original approval. The total site will have approximately 9% of its land utilized for buildings, while the remaining 90% of the site will mostly be for agricultural activity, recreational lakes, and open spaces. We believe adding the special use permit to the area around Shady Lakes will be complementary to the winery and will help preserve and protect the lakes. These bass and trout fishing lakes have been in operation for 55 years, providing family fun fishing opportunities to the Albuquerque area with stocked fish in 5 lakes. For many years, Shady Lakes has been a destination for school-age students who visit the lakes during the school hours. Barra intends on operating the lakes and maintaining them with the assistance of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation and their volunteers. We believe this will be a perfect opportunity to combine 2 major uses of a winery and recreational lakes that will be a North Valley gem for many years to come. The appellants argue that a petition of 79 or over 100 signatures in opposition of the request, as opposed to Barra's petition that includes 28 people in support of the request, should have resulted in the denial of the Barra application. However, the appellants have failed to recognize that the 28 people within Barra's petition of approval are within 1,000 feet of the subject site and would be most impacted by the approval. Barra has been able to demonstrate to the Planning Commission that the proposed use would adhere to all pertinent Bernalillo County regulations as found in the findings and conditions of approval. Barra understands the importance of preserving Shady Lakes and its ecosystem that has thrived for many years. And with that, we'd like to have Sarah Candelaria from New Mexico Wildlife Federation speak in regards to all the work that has been done and will be done to preserve Shady Lakes.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. My name is Sarah Candelaria, and I'm the Youth Program Director for New Mexico Wildlife Federation. I'm happy to be a partner with VARA to ensure that there's guidance and restoration for the ponds and to ensure that our wildlife are cared for, as Shady Lakes is a valued wildlife corridor for our migratory birds and plenty of other wildlife. I want to reassure everyone on this call that I have been there hand in hand, day after day, ensuring that plans have been taking place to ensure that those ponds are not only taken care of, but they're restored to a pristine condition to ensure that they are here for generations. They're not going anywhere. It's a beautiful thing on my soul, really, to know that as we've been bringing children out and youth out and families out to do some of this restoration. They're taking part in the community and taking part in this piece of property to ensure that it is going to be here and that there are people that care, and we are those people. And so I just want to be that voice to reassure everyone that we care about the wildlife, we care about the ponds, and we are working with VAR to ensure that everything's taken care of.
Thank you, Ms. Candelaria. And with that, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I am seeing no questions. So let's go on to appellant rebuttal, 3 minutes.
Yes, I appreciate your time, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. Having lived in this area for 54 plus years, I clearly understand the wildlife corridor. I guess I would find exception to the fact that this is going to protect any of the wildlife that's going to be there. With 124,000 square feet under roof, we're going to have miles and miles of roadways. We're going to have the walkways. We're going to have trucks coming and going, the expanded amount. We've got a distillery there. We've got garbage trucks coming and going. So any wildlife is going to rapidly exit the area that may have been once protected. And so far as the migratory birds, they fly up and down the Rio Grande. This is not going to be an area that's going to be substantially impacted by missing the wildlife capabilities that are currently there. There's a large population of resident geese that move back and forth between the Rio Grande as well as the various golf courses. And so I don't believe that there's going to be any major impact of trying to preserve this, because it's not going to be preserved with the thousands and thousands of square feet, the hundreds of people that are going to be there. Wildlife is not going to see this as a sanctuary in any way, shape, or form. They will move rapidly to the north to the Sandia Pueblo and to the west, which is also controlled by the Sandia Pueblo. And there will not be any animals that will be living in that area other than maybe little ground squirrels that don't care much about that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. And so now staff closing comments, 1 minute.
Madam Chair Piscotti, thank you. I just want to reassert that the County Planning Commission, contrary to the appellant's viewpoints, the County Planning Commission found that the subject request was consistent with a rural character through the preservation of the Shady Lakes and with the primary use of a winery and a vineyard. There are other related uses, but they are incidental to those two primary uses. I did hear concerns, and we have been getting, I am familiar with all of the concerns that Mr. Hauser has brought forth. My response would be that many of the concerns that are being brought forth by the neighborhoods have to do with technical requirements that are addressed and dealt with at the actual construction building permit level. The applicants did meet with planning staff as well as sections of the county like Public Works and outside agencies, New Mexico Department of Transportation. All of these technical agencies have reviewed this request, and there have been no significant issues found with this request at this stage. And so the concerns about water, the concerns that Mr. Hauser has brought up, again, will be dealt with as standard to not just this development, but all development in the county. And with that, I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? And this concludes the formal presentation. So are there any questions, comments, points of discussion at this point? And, you know, Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alberta, I seem to have, I've got the packet or the notice of decision with the findings. And I thought I had read something about amplified sound here. What is I can't find it now, but is there a condition related to that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, there is a finding and there is a condition. So let me direct you to that. Finding, just a moment here. I believe maybe it's just a condition. So I do see that there's a condition 6. Outdoor live entertainment is limited to 4 areas, and that would be the amplified sound. To 4 areas, 2 areas near the main winery, which is identified on the site plan as building 1, B1 and B2. 1 area near the restaurant tasting room near building J. That's kind of in the middle of the site. I could point, actually, I'm not sharing the map right now. And 1 near the Shady Lakes area. And staff in that condition is asking that a note on sheet C1.0 shall be updated to indicate that outdoor events are limited to these 4 areas as well. And then there is a follow-up condition 7 related to that number 6 that states that the site shall adhere to the Bernalillo County noise ordinance. So if the commission denies the appeals and supports the land use decision, the amplified sound happening with the outdoor live entertainment use would be regulated through the Bernalillo County noise ordinance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Benson.
Mr. Hauser, you said of your petitions, how many live in close proximity to this location?
to answer your question, sir, Mr. Benson, the petition involves the adjacent property owners within 200 feet. They're both on the petition, as well as the major property owners that are just on the other side of where Mr. Montoya lives. And I don't have the exact number in that category, but there are a number of those people that are in very close proximity to it, with only the railroad tracks and 313 dividing them. The other individuals are probably within 1,500 feet of it, as is my property where I live here and the Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association, as well as the North Edith Corridor. The exact distances, I don't have those available, sir. We're all within easy earshot of it, as you can imagine.
Anything else, Commissioner Benson?
Mr. Hauser, that doesn't quite answer my question. I'm trying to get a feel for the direct impact. It sounds like the petitions that VARA has brought are directly next to the property. So I'm trying to get an idea of the 119 petitions you have. You know, is it half that are directly next to it? Is it a quarter? Is it 10%? Is it, 5 people? Trying to get an idea of those petitions, just out of curiosity.
I would, and this is strictly a guess without going to the petitions and pulling the addresses specifically. We have Rose Garcia, that is an adjacent property owner. Got Becky Krebs as an adjacent property owner. Phil Montoya is an adjacent property owner, and his neighbors which abut him. So with that as the backdrop of it, I would say probably 10 to 15% I would consider to be adjacent property owners, sir.
Okay. You listed 5 or 4, but you'd say you'd round that up to 10 to 15% of those 120?
That would be correct, based on the neighborhoods that abuts Mr. Montoya. And he's within 200 feet of it.
Okay. I have a question, Madam Chair. Just in terms of the project, this would be a business. How many, and this goes out to whoever can answer this, what would we be looking at in terms of the impact on the economy, in terms of jobs created?
Madam Chair, if I can defer to the applicant to answer maybe more of this question about how many employees and the economic impact they anticipate.
Mm-hmm. Sure, go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we identify in our application that we'll have up to 50 employees at full build out. But the economic impact with the sales would be astronomical for Bernalillo County. We anticipate that this would be a successful business venture. And so we do anticipate there being positive results in regards to taxes generated for Bernalillo County.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Casada, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking for if you might have any kind of estimate of what the property taxes would be from where it is now and after full build out.
Madam Chair, members of the commission. So right now, some of the land is being taxed as residential, some of it agricultural. Since we are going to be obligated to replat the property, combine several of the lots, depending on what is happening on the particular lot, we would expect that the county would see some of the lots to be seen as commercial properties, and then probably the ones with the lake might be still seen as agricultural, but we're not exactly sure at this point, but that's our expectation.
Okay. Commissioner Barboa?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It hasn't been mentioned, but I'm assuming that tribal governments have been connected into this conversation and are aware of this development and approving.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, Commissioner Barbeau, I can answer that. The Sandia tribes is surrounding the subject site, and they have been notified formally by the county, as is part of our standard notification procedure for these types of special use permits. In fact, one of the tribal government representatives contacted me early on just to get basic information. I invited him to participate, but I haven't heard any concerns or any additional input since that first contact. It's been a while. So they are aware. Perhaps no news is no concerns. We have not heard anything negative from the tribal governments.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks. Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, again, another general question. The current zoning, if this appeal was approved and construction didn't happen here, what else could go in there that would be zoned for? And I ask because as a kid, I used to fish there on field trips. Have a lot of fond memories. And I remember it kind of being an amusement park almost. So a lot of noise, lots of kids everywhere, buses in and out. I was young, so I may be amplifying the memories of that. But would it be possible for these lakes to be destroyed if someone else were to build something else there? Because I'd like to preserve, I like the idea of preservation of this property and having it being another draw like it was when I was a kid.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benson, if I may answer that question in terms of what could develop on the subject site if it didn't develop as being proposed by the applicants, by Vara Winery. The current zoning is A1, so that's primarily a rural residential agricultural use, and the zoning limitations call for 1 residence per acre. So you're looking at 1 acre residential lots. So you could get approximately 25 homes here, and there's nothing stopping a landowner from filling those lakes. If they chose to want to develop that as residential, they could do so. So that would be one alternative to what is being proposed here today. So I have said in my presentation and throughout all the documentation that one of the unique factors of this project being put forward is the preservation of the Shady Lakes project.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. That's a big one right there. If this was sold to a developer, they could put 25 homes in, which I think would markedly alter the current environment. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Nicholas Ham, did you want to add something, or you good?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Nicholas Ham, zoning administrator. I think Ms. Lopez answered the question very adequately. I would just also add that Vara also has a previous approval of a special use permit. So that entitlement is in place and could also be undertaken whenever they see fit to get a building permit. So, but I do think Ms. Lopez provided a perfectly adequate answer to Mr. Benson's question.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate both of you. Commissioner Casada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, I just want to ask our attorney, Ken Martinez, a quick question. Would it be appropriate for me at this meeting to discuss something that is not related to this meeting, but to a conversation I had with somebody at one point about that land?
Just being kind of extra cautious on the Open Meetings Act. If it's a subject matter that was not published in the agenda for the meeting, I'd be a little careful about going off the agenda items, with all due respect.
Because we were talking about land use and what would it be used for. And so without disclosing that, I guess, is that I had heard that if this project doesn't go through, that there would be another type of someone interested in a different type of land use for that. And it was not residential. And I'm not quite sure if the residents would like what the alternative to that would have been. And I guess I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to get us in any hot water here.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, I have a question, Elvira. I think you had mentioned that there will be a thorough examination of some of the issues that Mr. Hauser brought up, like water, sewage, environmental impact, things like that. And I think there were some issues around fire and safety. So would all of that be thoroughly explored to make sure that it would be a sound development?
Madam Chair Piscotti, thank you for that question, because I do think it continues to come up, and I anticipate the same questions will come up in the subsequent appeals. I wouldn't even describe them as issues. They're really just items that come up with standard development. Of course, the neighborhoods are concerned because they're not seeing the detailed fire plans. But of course, that would not be appropriate at this stage, because this is a site plan. We haven't received any at this point, and wouldn't it be appropriate to? We wouldn't expect to receive a building permit for any of the structures that are being proposed. And by the way, I do have the site plan, if any of you want to look at it, that shows the location of buildings, et cetera. But right now, the land use is what's being considered along with the site plan, where these proposed structures are going to be located and where the existing amenities like the lakes or the features will also remain. And when, if this case, the appeal is not supported by the commission and the land use case is affirmed, and VARA then moves forward with their building permits, at that point would be the stage where fire would provide more detailed comments in relation to an actual construction drawing that they would submit to our building department. And so similarly, those same items, I don't want to call them issues, they're really items that are addressed with all standard development, from your one resident development to large commercial to wineries like this. This is a unique project. Natural resources would provide comments. Our transportation folks would provide not only comments, requirements at that stage. Fire would provide requirements. So there are standard development requirements that will be not even just addressed, but required and asked for before any certificate of occupancy would be provided to the applicants or to VARA Winery.
Okay, thank you so much for that thorough answer. And so items would be assessed as development would proceed, if it does, and requirements would be put in place for those items that were brought up. So I appreciate that. Are there any other questions? Commissioner O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the conditions pertaining to buildings and building permits. And at some point, it looks like it says that the square footage is associated with each use, with a mix of uses, that will be clarified prior to final site approval. So we've got a site plan, which is pretty detailed for the most part. We get an idea of where the buildings are, the footprints, etc. So other than really honing into this site plan, I mean, the final, we're basically saying that this is the draft site plan that we are looking at. I know that some things would change, not very much though, but this is basically what we're looking at right now for a site plan. Is that correct?
Madam Chair Piscotti, Commissioner O'Malley, that is correct. That is a site plan. And if you'd like, I can bring it up for you all to look
Yeah,
at.
I think it shows a lot of what's really gonna be there, especially when it comes to the agricultural part.
Let me bring that up. And so here is the site plan. Can you all see the site plan I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just walk you guys through it real quick. Walk everyone through it. This is the 31-acre site, and it does on the eastern end abut 4th Street. That is the main entrance and access point. And you could see that the site plan has showing the access routes both to the Shady Lakes area, which are these two area kind of lungs or kind of sections shown here, as well as further south to the main building of the winery. And that is the building B I had referred to as the main winery building, and it's proposed to be about 33,000 square feet. There's a smaller building here, which is identified as an event use. The other kind of important building is a restaurant tasting room located kind of between the winery and the Shady Lakes. And then further to the east here is a warehouse office, kind of like the hub of the winery, where they intend to do a lot of their management of the facility. There are some other ancillary type uses, smaller buildings. I do want to also point to next to the kind of restaurant tasting room, there are 6 small bed and breakfasts, which are part of the vision for receptions, meetings, and kind of taking advantage of the lakes and the kind of rural winery kind of atmosphere here that is being proposed. And I could also point you to the parking areas. The main parking runs along this eastern portion. And there also is other little pockets of parking to provide access to these facilities.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Malley, I can't see you on the screen. Do you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. And Elvira, yeah, if you could just switch back so I can see
Okay, I know.
everybody.
I think
Thank you.
Julie's on it. I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, okay, thanks. So are there any other questions? Okay, then I guess we shall proceed to the vote. And Elvira, do you want to just bring us home on this?
Madam Chair Piscotti, if I can interject, because as Lucas, our director, Mr. Tafoya mentioned, the neighborhoods have invoked a supermajority. So as a result, and also because we have 4 appeals, we are we recommend and are requiring that the vote happen after all the appeals are heard. Because of course, one decision would affect the other 3. So if we can postpone that to after having heard all of the other 3 appeals.
Okay. And just to clarify, do we vote after everything is put out there? Do we vote on each appeal separately? I
Madam Chair Piscotti, that would be correct.
Okay. Okay. But for now, we should just move on to the second appeal, hear everything, and then vote at the end on each one.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So then we will move on to appeal number 2. And Elvira, you have 1 minute to introduce this.
Okay, great. And being that we have the various numbers of appeals, I have kind of cut my presentation down in to spare you from repetitiveness and also provide other participants more time. So the next case before you is, just a second, I'm out of order here. I apologize. The item before you is agenda item number 5B, case number COA 2021-0003, a request for appeal of CSU 2020-0013. The same site conditions from the previous appeal apply to this request. The site is 31 acres. 11 acres of the site is already approved with a special use permit for winery, distillery, and other uses. The purpose of the land use request is the same as previously stated. In this second appeal, the appellants are the Alameda North Valley Association, led by Steve Wentworth, and the North Valley Coalition, led by Peggy Norton. And Ms. Norton will be presenting on behalf of this appeal. Opponents to the appeal are the applicants, of course, which are Tinney Corporation, FBO Vara LLC, represented by JAG Planning. And this concludes my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Okay, any questions at this point? I see none. So let's move on to appellant. And so Peggy Norton, I believe you're speaking. You have 7 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Piscotti, Commissioners. My name is Peggy Norton, President of the North Valley Coalition. I'm presenting the appeal by the Coalition and the Alameda North Valley Association. Despite statements made to the contrary by the applicant and the Planning Commission notice of decision, this site falls within the boundaries of the North Valley Area Plan. We both are longstanding associations and encourage you to approve our appeal. We consider this project to be a commercial industrial size and use that does not belong in an A1 rural agricultural zone. This application should have been treated on its own merits according to procedure 2 and 3 of the Bernco Zone Code Special Use Permit Application Procedure. Instead, the CPC accepted the validity of the 2018 SUP, used it as justification for the new SUP, superseding the 2018 permit. A distillery is not allowed for a special use permit. Staff recommended denial of the October permit as having too many uses and not complying with plans. This permit has almost as many uses which have been renamed or considered incidental. Packaged liquor stores, bars, and lounges have been removed, but tasting rooms have been added which can serve and sell wine, beer, and spirits. Restaurants have been renamed and labeled incidental, defined as customarily incidental to a main use. However, only one winery in New Mexico serves food, Vara. Deletion of a day spa, art gallery, and one restaurant resulted in 150 employees being reduced to 50. Where is the justification? This project does not comply with policies and goals of the North Valley Area Plan regarding zoning and land use, housing, separation of residential, non-residential uses, preservation of A1 zoned land, stabilization of land use, and protection from SUPs. By denying that this area falls within the plan boundaries, the NOD allows the applicant to ignore addressing the overarching goals and policies of the plan. The applicant and planning interpret 2AI of zoning and land use to mean 5 employees per half acre, when the section reads 5 or fewer employees on 1/2 greater acre or greater for owner occupied businesses. Assigning an SUP allows this land to be used for a multitude of uses that are not allowed on A1 property. This does not represent stabilization of land use, nor limiting encroachment of non-residential uses into residential areas, nor maintaining and expanding areas zoned for residential uses. Housing Policy 1. In the comprehensive plan, Policy 3B, development shall be compatible with natural resource capacities, including water availability and soil capacity. There's been no discussion of water availability, current and projected use. Policy 3G, small scale local industries employ few people, may sell products on the same premises, are the most desirable industrial use. Neighborhood and/or community scale rather than regional scale commercial centers are appropriate for rural areas. Commercial development should be clustered at major intersections. This project complies with none of these criteria. These errors in applying adopted county plans, policies, and ordinances violate CFR 11686. We include detailed analysis of R11686 in the file. Just to cite a few, the applicant did not appropriately address the health, safety, welfare issue, and the CPC erred in making their finding. Everybody in this area receives water from wells, yet no data was submitted showing current use and projected use. The new traffic study allows for a 20% increase from the 2019 study. It's difficult to believe this number if the acreage tripled, facilities were added, outdoor event venues and hours, days expanded. Regarding cost of land, the applicant states that the change is needed to allow Shady Lakes to expand its uses to remain a viable enterprise to compete with Sandia Lakes. This is not a spot zone by definition, since it is not one small area, it is a very large area. However, it gives the zoning to one area that is very different from the surrounding area. The burden is on the applicant to show why the change should be made. This application does not comply with various provisions in BRNCO recognized plans and policies. Therefore, the applicant has not met the burden of showing why the change should be made. Determining that the earlier permit created change conditions is a mistake of fact. Nothing has been done to change conditions, and I attached a satellite view of the area showing farmland to the south, Bosque to the west, Sandia Lakes to the north, residences on 4th Street. There is no second access as required by fire code, and the Wilder neighborhood has not offered their road for such. The southern easement is in litigation. It is disgraceful that the Garcia family is having to go through legal actions and great expense to prove the original intent of their easement, access to a single residence. While vineyard area has been reduced by about 30%, the covered area has increased 165%, indicating outdoor events are a major use of the property. It is an error to approve an SUP based on a winery vineyard as a primary use for this development. The development around the lakes will reduce any benefit to wildlife from the lakes. Was arbitrary and capricious by not requiring fire code comments in the file, especially since there was discussion between the applicant and the fire department. After a new vote at the CPC, 4 commissioners out of 7 supported this project, although none opposed it. In conclusion, we ask the commission to support our appeal and denial of this special use permit.
Thank you, Ms. Norton. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, on to opponent. Kinney Corp, FBO Vara LLC, JAG Planning, and Deborah Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Juanita Garcia, and I'm with JAG Planning and Zoning, agent for Kinney Corp, FBO Vara LLC. We respectfully request the denial of COA 2021-0003 and ask that you uphold the Planning Commission's approval of VARA's 2020 special use permit. Since all of the criteria for special use permit had been carefully considered during the review process of the application. Our full response to the appeal can be found on page 1412. Since we are limited on time, we can't address all of the aspects or all the points that were presented in this recent appeal. The appellants argued that the CPC erred in applying adopted county policies, plans, and ordinances in arriving at their decision. The subject site does not have a comprehensive plan land use designation, and the North Valley Area Plan does not identify the area as part of their boundary as shown on many exhibits throughout the plan. Nonetheless, VARA was asked to justify the request using these documents, and CPC determined that the proposed request meets these planning documents. the conditions of approval were established to ensure that the 2020 VARA SUP application will meet all of Bernalillo County state and state regulations, including the fire code, pertaining to the construction, remodel of existing and new buildings, including but not limited to infrastructure, walls and fences, lighting, signage, noise, and the use of the lakes for fishing or recreational purpose, as well as alcohol sales as they pertain to the operation of the winery and distillery as identified in the conditions of approval. Appellant's request for information associated with the fire code is premature. Fire code review typically occurs at building permit, and VARA will be required to comply with all the fire codes when development occurs on the site. VARA did meet with all the affected neighborhood associations to discuss the project and did consider their comments and concerns, which resulted in a reduction of uses, thereby having only those uses that are associated with the winery and the recreation lakes be a part of the SUP. We'd like to have Deborah Chavez speak on behalf of the Wilda Neighborhood Association, who are in support of the VARA SUP.
And go ahead, Deborah, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Deborah Chavez. I am the president of the Wilda Neighborhood Association and here today to represent the opposition of appeals. The proposed site is within the boundaries of the Wilda Residents Neighborhood Association, as you can see on Exhibit A that I have submitted. WRNA members are residents who are very concerned that other neighborhood associations would purport to be speaking on our behalf. They are not. This site is not within the boundaries of the Alameda Neighborhood Association, as evidenced by the original application on January 3rd, 2018. And as evidenced by Bernalillo County zoning staff evaluation and recommendations for approval and the petitions of support submitted by VARA, it is obvious that the residents that reside within the 200 feet rule and the vast majority of the Wilda residents support this project. As previously stated at the hearing with Bernalillo County Commissions, the Maria Dyers Neighborhood Association, the Alameda North Valley Association, the North Valley Coalition to this date have never made any attempt to contact our neighborhood association or the residents of this area to discuss our reasons pertaining to the support of this application. Yet it's in our dismay why they would oppose this application without our involvement. We wholeheartedly encourage the Commission to approve this project. The VADA project will ensure that other potential developers will not come in to purchase and develop the area of Shady Lakes in a manner that can negatively impact our neighborhood. Members of the WRNA participate in discussions with other developers who have expressed an interest of developing Shady Lakes area as apartments or townhomes, which we could not support. The VADA project satisfies the county's objectives, developing an appropriate development within a rural-like setting, and the VADA winery and distillery will add diversity to our neighborhood while maintaining the rural nature of the special area. Furthermore, and most importantly, the VADA application will preserve Shady Lakes and all its surrounding habitats, as Shady Lakes has been wonderful resident to our neighborhood for many years. Again, there is substantial support from our neighborhood residents within 200 feet of the site for the proposed special use, and there's substantial support from the residents within the boundaries of the Wilda Resident Neighborhood Association. If it wasn't for COVID, we all would be sitting in the chambers as we were in 2018, showing our full support. Madam Chair and Commissioners, we thank you for considering our request for your approval of the VADA project.
Thank you. And are there any questions? Seeing none, let's go to the appellate rebuttal, 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Peggy Norton, and I would like to state that on page 26 of the North Valley Area Plan, it very clearly says the northern boundary is the Bernalillo County Sandoval line. There is nothing in the application addressing housing, separation of residences and commercial uses. And while other people have said about the fire code, at least the discussion could have been included in the packet. Plans should be driving this decision. These are long-range plans that Bernalillo County has as far as where they want development, how they want development to occur. And those should be what are driving your decision-making process. There is much more than a winery here. There's a distillery, there's a warehouse, there's storage, there's casitas, there's the outdoor event centers, expanded days. I respect that the Wilder neighborhood formed this year to advocate for this project. The Wilder neighborhood includes the project land and Tinney Corporation owner. They've stated they hope their property values will increase. These are not decisions that should be used to make, these are not ideas that should be used to make decisions. And I guess that's all I have in rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norton. And staff closing comments, 1 minute, please.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think the topic of whether this subject site is within the North Valley Area Plan and where it's located in the comprehensive plan, I think needs to be clarified. Staff did look at those classifications. It's part of our standard review when we're looking at a land use case. We did so in 2018 and again in this more current request, 2020-21 request. The subject site is technically located in the North Valley Area Plan when you look at the geographic scope. It is also in the comprehensive plan because it is in the county. However, the kind of nuance here is that it is in the far North Valley, and it is located in an area identified by the comprehensive plan as Sandia tribes. So technically speaking, the subject site is not located in the rural area. However, given the need to evaluate this and using best practices, planning practices, we recommended that the commission evaluate the project according to rural policies of a comprehensive plan. And again, we also recommended that they evaluate the project in accordance with the North Valley Area Plan policies. So when the commission decided to approve the subject request here, the land use, originally on February 3rd, 2021, and again, April 7th, 2021, they did rely upon existing planning documents and the zoning code to approve this request. And with that, I stand for questions.
You know, I have a question. Ms. Norton mentioned wine, beer, spirits, and she kept using the term distillery. So when I think of distillery, I think of hard liquor, and also I don't know if it was Ms. Norton or Mr. Hauser talked about the package store. Can you tell me, either Elvira or Ms. Garcia, will you be brewing beer, distilling liquor, or is it only a winery? I don't know if there's a name other than winery, but it doesn't sound like a distillery to me. So could you clarify that, please?
Madam Chair, I'll defer to the applicant, JAG Planning.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, so the main function of the site will be a winery. VARA does also distill products and mixes them into the winery. And so, so there is a relationship between the two, between the winery and the distillery. And so, and so that's how the relationship exists between the two. And that the distillery products will be incorporated into the winery products as well.
So can you just educate me? What is a distillery product?
So a distillery product is something that's has a higher alcohol volume than the wine itself. So it is a distilled spirit.
And it creates like a fortified wine?
Correct. Yes, it does.
Okay. And so your store, from what I saw from the 3,000 page agenda packet, would only sell the products that you create on site. Is that correct? So you won't?
No.
Yes, Madam Chair. So initially we did submit for a full service liquor, which would include packaged liquor. That would allow VARA to sell products that are not made on site or New Mexico products. However, we have since moved away from that part of the application. And so what would be sold on the site would be those products that are made within the site and those products that are sold within New Mexico. The winery and distillery laws in New Mexico allow each winery distillery to sell other products from New Mexico. It's a reciprocity clause, which allows the wineries, distilleries, breweries to have other products from New Mexico showcased in all of their in all of the wineries, distilleries, or breweries.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So it really supports New Mexico products and economy. Okay. Nicholas Ham.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I just also wanted to add that as we're all aware, there was a previous approval here. The winery and the distillery function as described by Ms. Garcia was also included in that approval. So that's not a new use here. And to some of the points made earlier about wordsmithing, I just wanted to also point out that initially Ms. Lopez recommended denial of this request. And the applicant's response was to genuinely reduce the intensity of the activity by both agreeing to additional conditions and modifying the site development plan to be more contextual to what the planning department felt could be approved in this specific location. So there was a change to the list of uses, but that was a genuine reduction in the types of activity and the intensity of the activity that's going to occur on this site.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that from the 3,000 page agenda packet that there were several things like the day spa that were removed, among other things.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to appeal number 3 then. So Elvira, you have 1 minute.
Okay. Get back on that. The third appeal is, okay. The item before you now is item 5C, case number COA 2021-0006, a request for appeal of CSU 2020-0013. The same site conditions from the previous appeal apply to this request. The site is 31 acres. 11 acres of the site is already approved with a special use permit for winery, distillery, and other uses. The purpose of the land use request, CSU 2020-0013, is the same as previously stated. In this third appeal, the appellant is Becky Krebs. Ms. Krebs is an adjoining property owner, and I could share and show you where she lives. I think that's important. Let me bring back my maps. Ms. Krebs, so this kind of upside down L is the shape of the subject site, and Ms. Krebs' property abuts the subject site, and it's this area that I'm pointed to. The opponents to the appeal are again the applicants of the request, and that's Tinney Corporation FBO Vara LLC, represented by Jack Planning. And this concludes my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Okay, seeing no questions, let's move on to the appellant, Becky Krebs. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair Piscotti and members. My name is Becky Krebs. As Elvira said, I'm an adjacent landowner to the project. We have a 700-foot long common boundary. I have 3 main points. First, Resolution 11686, Policy F. A land use change of zone shall not be approved where some of the permissive uses in the land use change would be harmful to adjacent property, neighborhood, or community. They are planning to locate a 24,000 square foot warehouse/laboratory next to my farm buildings. Their facility has 42 covered parking spaces located 25 feet from my property line. The 2-story warehouse lab is 70 feet from my property. They have requested this manufacturing use be considered as incidental to the winery, which is nearly 1/3 of a mile away. The special use ordinance carefully names the only authorized uses allowed, and manufacturing is not on that list for A1 land. The warehouse lab is not incidental to the winery by definition. It's not appropriate in an A1 zone. It is not subordinate to the winery in its scale or uses, and the massive warehouse is not customarily incidental on A1 land. My property will be harmed by the noise and increased activity from commercial vehicles with only a 25-foot separation. The 24,000 square foot two-story facility is out of scale and inappropriate in A1 neighborhood. This will damage my property value both as a farm and a home site. Neighborhood conditions will change from a quiet rural area to a noisy, high activity park, industrial park. My second point concerns the distillery as an incidental use. There is no justification in the zoning ordinance for a winery/distillery as a permissive use in either the 2018 or the current submittal. The 2018 application was approved calling the distillery a primary use. That use does not appear in the list of authorized uses for an A1 property in the special use regulations. I've submitted documents for the record that show the approval was based on calling the distillery as another primary use in the 2018 case. Distillery is permissive only in the M2 manufacturing zone. The current 2020 application piggybacks on this illegal 2018 approval, but in the current submittal, distillery is now called incidental. In a letter from Elvira Lopez to JAG, she suggested that this tactic is a way to reduce the many separate zone designations requested in their first submittal that was recommended for denial. That's how the distillery became an incidental use. The distillery use and the winery use are two distinct processes in the county zoning ordinance. The state of New Mexico requires two different licenses for winery and craft distiller, which supports the distinction between the two. Distillery is not incidental to the winery use by definition. It is not appropriate. It is an M2 use in an A1 zone. It is not subordinate. There are two distinctly different processes and businesses, if you will, and two different New Mexico liquor licenses. It is not customarily incidental to the winery use. There are many distillery locations in Bernalillo County and Albuquerque, but all are located on manufacturing zone land. In the city NRLM, which is light manufacturing. The Taylor Garrett Distillery, which is the distillery affiliated with Barra right now, is located on a manufacturing zone property. Permitting incidental uses in inappropriate locations amounts to a rewrite of the zoning ordinance and denies property owners the protections guaranteed by the zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, and North Valley area plan. In this situation, all protections for property owners in the zoning inherent in the zoning ordinance and supporting plans can be bypassed at staff level. This process gives unlimited discretion to staff to clear new uses that would usually require a zone change. The 2018 SUP should be canceled because of the incorrect primary use designation for distillery. The 2020 special use permit should be denied because of the inappropriate use of the incidental category for intense manufacturing and distillery uses. Elvira, could you put up my map?
Sure.
Now, I'm going to proceed. I don't want to lose any time here.
Sure. I've got it ready to go. Just give me a second.
My third point concerns fire code violations. The Tinivara project is in a highly sensitive fire area called Wildland Urban Interface Area. It's in an area of the North Valley without water and sewer service. The nearest fire hydrant is over 1 mile away. I have spent 2.5 years requesting a fire code review of this site plan, both the earlier one and this one, and I'm still waiting for fire department comments. I have sent numerous memos to various county personnel asking for a site plan review. The project has been excused from the county planning review that all projects must go through. There have been 2 CDRA submittals for replat on this project, yet the fire department representative on that board did not review the site plan. The common response from all was a site plan review would take place at the time of building permit request. The notice of decision, condition 13 says, the applicant shall comply with all applicable county ordinances and regulations. It doesn't say that the applicant can comply sometime in the future when it's time for a building permit and more convenient for the applicant. Every place on this map that has color on it is a fire code violation. There's a key down at the bottom. I'm not sure if you can read that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about this diagram if you'd like. Let me summarize my 3 points, please. This project violates nearly all policies of Resolution 11686. Policy F is violated because this project will harm my property. Locating a massive warehouse and parking only 25 feet from the common property line will completely change neighborhood conditions and affect my property value. The 2018 approval of distillery as a primary use was an error in applying adopted county plans, policies, and ordinances when it was approved. This SUP should be canceled. The 2020 description of distillery as incidental to the winery is a reinvention of the special use regulations. This incidental use tactic overrides all the protections for property owners that are in the zoning ordinance, the comp plan, and the North Valley area plan. It is a backdoor zone change. There are numerous fire code violations in the 2020 site plan. It was excused from the standard review routine despite my many requests to county staff. Every other project is reviewed for compliance, but not this one. And for the record, I have submitted a list of recent denials for projects based on fire code non-compliance. That is in the record. And that was all done during the planning phase, not at building permit phase.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Krebs. You'll have to wrap it up.
My last sentence, it just makes common sense and legal sense to demand compliance of all applicable ordinances prior to approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions at this point? Seeing none, let's move on to opponent, Tini Corp, FBO Vara LLC, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, my name is Juanita Garcia, and with JAG Planning and Zoning, agent for Tini Corp, FBO Vara LLC. We respectfully request the denial of COA 2021-0006 and ask that you uphold the County Planning Commissioner's approval of Vara's 2020 special use permit, since all of the criteria for a special use permit had been carefully considered during the review process of this application, and our full response to this appeal can be found on 2201 of your packet. The appellant argues that some proposed uses are not incidental to the winery. However, the record demonstrates that the BCC made a determination in the 2018 SUP that Vara's distillery use is related to its winery use, and it's reflected in the 2018 special use permit notice of decision. For this SUP request, staff made a determination on a case-by-case basis as to whether the uses in question are for a related use to the winery, distillery, or a separate use. Ultimately, staff reached the determination that incidental uses of Vara's winery include manufacturing, assembling, sales, storage, tasting rooms, winery restaurant, winery office, a welcome office, the agricultural activity, the winery laboratory for quality control purposes, which is required by state law, staff quarters, and retail sales. And so staff was asked to consider those, and CPC agreed with staff's interpretation as found in finding 4 on the notice of decision. The appellants also argues that the 2-story building that is proposed adjacent to the appellant's property would be overburdensome for the appellant. However, the building height restrictions are the same as for the property that's zoned A1. So the height limitation would be similar to what, so if the site remained as A1 or being used as A1. In addition, the appellant argues that the off-street parking spaces would impact the appellant's property. However, the site will be subject to the landscape standards, requiring there to be a solid wall fence and landscaping adjacent to the properties to mitigate any sort of impact to the property that is owned by the appellant. And just to make a note that the appellant does not live at the site at this point. It is technically an agricultural use. It's not a residential use since there is no dwelling unit on the site. We believe adding the special use permit to the area around Shady Lakes would be complementary to the winery, help preserve and protect the lakes. For many years, Shady Lakes has been a destination for school-age students who visit the lakes during school hours. VARA intends on operating the lakes and maintaining them with the assistance of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation and their volunteers. And we believe this will be a perfect opportunity to combine the 2 major uses of a winery and recreational lakes. And that will be a North Valley gem for many years to come. And we have Rafe Martinez with us today to speak about the volunteers from the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy.
Okay, Rafe, you have about a minute left, so.
I'll be fast, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm just here to reinforce and assure the commission of our intent, the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy, our intent to be an active partner in the maintenance and upkeep of Shady Lakes. If you know anything about our little charter school, we work with deaf, hard of hearing, and special needs kids in a very inclusive environment. And Vara Wine has generously stepped forward and offered us an opportunity to be to help in the maintenance of such a historic site as Shady Lake. So we're privileged to be part of this, and we're hoping that all goes well, that the project can move forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions? Okay, then let's go back to appellant rebuttal. Ms. Krebs, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 2018 determination by CPC to allow a distillery was incorrect. It was represented as a primary use, and that use does not exist in the special use zoning ordinance. That is a fact that remains. The switchover, the changeover, if that was represented as a primary use and approved that way, it's a question as to why the applicant is now changing to incidental use for the distillery. The business about the warehouse located next to my farm. I do not live there. However, it is my farm and I'm there every single day. I just cannot imagine that this commission would allow an industrialized M2 use to be planted in the middle of an A1 property right next to a A1 zoned land. All of this business about incidental uses, I'm going to say again, is just nothing more than a backdoor zone change that normally these uses would have to go through a complete zone change hearing and go through all of these public hearings, but now staff just recommends it and approves it for all of these intense manufacturing and distillery uses. Then the last thing I'm going to say is about fire code. Everybody is doubling down on this business about fire code can be reviewed at the time building permits are submitted. But I want to know, why weren't the other parties that were going through this review process allowed to do the same thing on their projects? No, they were denied approval until they cleared up the issues about fire code, about fire access roads, turning radius, parking, easements, all of that. So why does this particular case get special attention and special exemption on complying with fire code?
Thank you, Ms. Krebs.
Thank you.
Elvira, staff closing comments, 1 minute.
Madam Chair Piscotti. So there were a lot of comments. I just have 1 minute. Real quickly, the original 2018 request was for a winery and distillery. So that is not a new element being proposed in the 2020 submittals, 2020, 2021 submittals. The distillery was originally approved in 2018. Secondly, winery and vineyard is a listed use within special use section 18 of the zoning code, and the applicants made a successful request. The CPC approved it. I believe I also have to reassert what my colleague, Mr. Ham, said about the overall background to this case. The applicants for our winery originally submitted a project in October. Staff reviewed it and concluded that it was too intense. They were asking for more uses. Some of the already specifics have surfaced during these discussions, such as bar and lounge, such as packaged liquor, day spa. There were too many uses, and staff really encouraged the applicants to refocus their project to winery, and we believe that they did. We recommended to the commission that they had done that and met the policies and requirements of the zoning code. And with that, I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? I see none, so let's move on to the fourth appeal. And Elvira, you've got another minute to introduce this one.
Sorry. Okay, let's see. Last one. So the item before you now is agenda item 5D, case number COA 2021-0004, a request for appeal of CSU 2020-0013. The same site conditions from the previous appeal apply to this request. The site is 31 acres. 11 acres of the site already has an approved special use permit for winery, distillery, and other uses. The purpose of the land use request is the same as previously stated. In this fourth and last appeal, the appellants are Rose Garcia and Peter Garcia. There are adjoining landowners to the subject site, and similar to the previous request, I just wanted to share where they resided, as I think that's important. So the Garcia property is located on the southern side of the subject site along here. And the Garcias are being represented by Mr. Joe Wernz, an attorney for the Garcia family. The opponents are Tinney Corporation, FBO Vara LLC. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Okay, so let's move on to the appellant. 7 minutes, please. And so is that Joe Wernz?
I do see him on the meeting, and he is unmuted.
Okay, Joe, we can't hear you. And are Rose and Peter Garcia here?
I do not see them on the line.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Julian, can you see Joe? Can you, because I can't see him on my screen.
Yes, so he's on the second page of the screen.
Okay.
At the bottom.
Is he speaking?
I do not His camera's not, but he is not muted. Joe, if you can hear me, if you'd like to leave the meeting, and then I can readmit you if you're having audio issues.
Or you can chat us, Joe, so we could know what's going on with you, or your volume might be down on your computer.
Alvita, do you know if Joe was going to join both by linking in and by phone? I do have a phone number in the attendees that I can identify.
I wasn't aware that he was going to call in. I was aware he was going to join by Zoom.
Okay.
I can try to call him.
Please.
Or do you have a phone number for him?
I do not.
And we don't have Peter or Rose here?
No, they have not joined the Zoom.
Okay. Let me see if I can call him.
There he is.
Can you? I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. Been listening for the last 2 hours.
Okay, Joe. In the interest of time, you have 7 minutes.
Okay, I'll make the most of it. Thank you. Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'm Joe Wernz. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Moses, Dunn, Farmer, and Tuthill, and I represent Rose and Peter Garcia. They've asked me to address the Commission, asking you to reverse or at a minimum remand the CPC decision approving the special use permit because it failed to adopt any condition of approval that limited use of the private easement across their property. I'm going to attempt to share screen here, or if Elvira could put up the
Yes.
The location of the Garcia property, that might be easier.
Did you want me to share what you sent me to share?
Yeah, if you could share it, that's fine, right there. Can you see my cursor?
No. I'll point to it right here.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, where she's
This is the
pointing.
Wilda neighborhood, and this is Garcia, correct?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Elvira. By way of background for the Commission, the Garcia property is where the hand is shown on the screen. That's the Garcia property. The Garcia easement is located along the south boundary of the Garcia tract. If you could move the hand along the south boundary, exactly, that's where it is. The Garcia easement's a private easement that was granted in 1991 for the benefit only of tract 79A1, which is immediately to the west of the Garcia tract. If the hand would move up. Yes, right there. That consists of 5.47 acres. Now, in 2018, the county did approve a special use permit, not only for that 5.47 acre tract, but also an adjoining tract of land that is identified as tract C of the Walker subdivision. At that point in time, after the special use permit was approved, the Garcias filed a lawsuit in Bernalillo County over the use of the Garcia easement for that 11.4 acres that was approved in the 2018 special use permit. In September of 2020, Judge Benjamin Garcia ruled in a summary judgment that the use of the Garcia easement along the south side of its property is restricted to only the 4.57 acre tract. The judge has not yet determined the scope of that easement and whether the Garcia easement can actually be used for the uses that were approved in the 2018 special use permit, much less the uses that are being approved in the 2020 special use permit. Now, there are 6 reasons why we believe you should either reverse or remand the decision of the CPC. First of all, the CPC didn't adopt any condition of approval that limits Vara's use of the Garcia easement for its project to the 4.57 acres. There's no condition that limits it to that particular tract. Instead, what's happened, the CPC has actually doubled down and has adopted a condition number 4 in its conditions of approval in its final decision, requiring Vara to consolidate the 4.57 acre tract with all of the tracts that are run immediately to the north. If you could move your hand, it goes all the way down, as I understand, to the second blue, the bottom blue line, the last blue line right there. So what that does, that's increased the size of the tract that's going to be platted by 5 times over the 4.57 acre tract, and it's double the land area that was approved in the 2018 special use permit. The Garcia easement potentially now can be used by traffic throughout that entire consolidated tract instead of just the 4.57 acres that the easement is limited to. In the application that Vara filed, and even at the hearing before the CPC, Vara has not addressed in any meaningful way how use of the Garcia easement for its project will be limited to the 4.57 acre tract. The traffic circulation pattern in the site plan shows that the entire 23 acre tract potentially can use the Garcia easement, particularly when you consider that the bulk of the parking is going to be located along the east side of the project. At the CPC hearing, Commissioner Hurdle questioned Vara about the necessity of the Garcia easement, and Vara responded it was not needed. And so that's another reason that we have a concern that the Garcia easement is being shown and considered as part of the approval of the special use permit. We also want to point out that the CPC either didn't consider or fully understand the comment that was made by the County Public Works Department that the Garcia easement is disputed and that approval of the special use site plan doesn't override the terms of the private easement agreement that governed the use of the Garcia easement. And so that comment should have prompted the CPC to include some condition of approval that would limit the use of the Garcia easement to the 4.57 acre tract. We are also concerned about the use of the Garcia easement for the project because it's our understanding that it violates the Bernalillo County Fire Code. The Garcia easement running from 4th Street all the way to the Albuquerque Main Canal is 741 feet long.
Mr. Wernz, your time is up.
May I have a moment to conclude?
Please.
Okay. Anyway, the fire code requires a 26-foot easement. The Garcia easement is only 22 feet. And finally, we simply ask that you grant the appeal, reverse the CPC decision approving the 2020 SUP. At a minimum, we ask that you remand this matter to the Planning Commission to hold in abeyance pending a decision by Judge Chavez on the legal scope of use of the Garcia easement.
Thank you, Mr. Wernz. Opponent, Tini Corp. FBO Vara LLC, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Again, my name is Juanita Garcia. I'm with JAG Planning and Zoning, agent for Tini Corp. FBO Vara LLC. We respectfully request the denial of COA 2021-0004 and ask that you uphold the County Planning Commission's approval of Vara's 2020 special use permit, since all the criteria for a special use permit had been carefully considered, and our full response to this appeal can be found on page 2950 of your packet. I don't want to mention or discuss the previous approval. We've already talked about that, but I do want to say that in the 2018 SUP, the sole entrance to the 11-acre site was through the Garcia access easement. In the course of litigation over this easement, an opinion and order dated September 17, 2020 clarified that the Garcia easement only provides access to a portion of the 11-acre site and not the entire site, which we have acknowledged in the site plan. With the 2020 VARA SUP application, primary access to the 30+ acre site will be from the historical entrance to Shady Lakes, not the Garcia Easement. The Garcia Easement would be limited to emergency vehicles and vehicles that will service only the structures on the land that was originally associated with the Garcia Easement. VARA wants to emphasize that the main public access to the site will be through Shady Lakes. While it's true that there is pending litigation which could possibly affect the use of the Garcia Easement by non-emergency vehicles, this litigation is wholly separate from this proceeding. Based on our legal research, emergency vehicles may lawfully use any available route to respond to an emergency, thereby meeting the fire department's requirements. The appellants also argue that the CPC erred in applying county plans, policies, and ordinances because of the commercial manufacturing development. However, these uses are incidental to a winery, which is allowed in the A1 zone through the special use permit. And so we have with us today Mr. Rudy Chavez, who is also an adjacent property owner to the site, and we'd like to have him speak.
Okay, Mr. Chavez, the clock is ticking. You have 2 minutes.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Rudy Chavez, and I reside at 10907 4th Street Northwest, which is within the boundaries of the Wilda Residents Neighborhood Association. I have lived here for approximately 30 years, and my wife and her family have lived here for over 70 years. I am presently building a new house for both my wife and myself, which will be built within 200 feet from the Vada Winery project. The Vada Winery project will be nestled within the heart of the Wilda neighborhood and is supported by the vast majority, well over 90%, of the neighbors directly impacted by this project. The fact of the matter is that only one of the 4 appellants reside within the boundaries of the Wilda Neighborhood Association. Rose Garcia lives in our neighborhood. Her son, Peter, lives in California. Becky Krebs lives in the East Mountains. And obviously the neighborhood associations, Dyer, Alameda, Edith, and North Valley are not residents of our neighborhood. Commissioners, it is important for you to understand and know that the Wilda neighborhood residents are extremely disappointed and quite frankly, very upset that the various neighborhood associations have made no attempt whatsoever to meet with our neighborhood residents to ask us why we overwhelmingly support the Vada project. Yet they have the audacity to both oppose and then file an appeal to the Planning Commission's decision. Bernalillo County has an ordinance that provides regulatory oversight for recognized neighborhood associations.
You'll need to wrap up, Mr. Chavez. You'll need to wrap up.
In the responsibility section of the ordinance, neighborhoods are required to meet, discuss, and talk to us. They have never done so. Prior to Vada purchasing Shady Lakes, a development company was going to build 40 apartments on the Shady Lakes property. Thank God, Vada purchased it. Commissioners, the residents of the Wilda Neighborhood Association request that you deny all 4 appeals. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And appellant rebuttal, 3 minutes.
Yes, I'll make it very brief. Again, there's nothing in the CPC approval of the special use permit that limits the use of the Garcia easement with respect to the project. It's limited to the 4.57 acre tract without some sort of condition of approval that restricts the use of the Garcia easement. The natural tendency is going to be for traffic through that project, especially in the 23 acres, to use the Garcia easement for ingress or egress. Again, it's easy to say that it's going to be a service entrance or it's going to be limited, but without certain conditions of approval that specifically require that, the natural tendency of traffic is going to be to leave the site at an exit point most convenient. And so for these reasons, we believe that the decision needs to be remanded for conditions of approval at a minimum to be added to the special use permit to restrict the use of the Garcia easement for the project. Again, also, given the fact that that Garcia easement is only 22 feet wide, again, it's not wide enough, according to our understanding of the Fire Code Exhibit D, that requires a distance of that nature to have at least a 26-foot minimum requirement. That's not something that's going to be met by the Garcia easement by virtue of the terms of the easement itself. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Staff closing 1 minute.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm going to just share my screen one last time. With regards to the comments about the easement, generally staff analysis and recommendation to the commission is that that is a civil matter and the courts will determine the kind of agreement regarding that easement. And so we did not recommend that we become involved in that matter. And then lastly, because I know I just have a few seconds, I did want to bring up the site plan. This is one of the site plans submitted showing a rendering of all of the vegetation integrated into the subject site. Much of this vegetation is existing. There are beautiful cottonwoods. If you've been to the site, it's absolutely gorgeous. Staff recommended to the commission and the commission agreed that this project was consistent with the rural policies of the comprehensive plan and the North Valley area plan. And with that, I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. And so can we go back to the full? Okay, I see Commissioner Casada has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, stop sharing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question probably for staff. How would the judgment on the easement affect the any decision that is made this evening?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Quesada, I'll attempt to respond to that and perhaps seek the support of other staff, but depending on what the judge decides on this matter, that again, my understanding would be a private matter for them to implement that decision, but it wasn't for the commission to make that decision or incorporate into the land use case before you.
I'm aware of that. I'm just wondering how that affects any decisions that's made this evening. What if the judge decides that he's going to take away the easement, and what happens to the project after that? Do they have a plan to find other access? Is there something that they're looking at to move forward? I mean, these are questions that I have just based on trying to make a decision based on the information I have heard tonight. Despite any other comments about what other land use could be used in this area, I'm trying to focus on this particular case tonight. And I think that, that's some information that I think weighs on what decision, I think I make on a successful decision.
Madam Chair Piscotti, if I could defer to the applicant to respond to that, what their kind of alternatives are.
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
Sorry, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'd like to have Michelle Henry, who is part of the VARA team, part of the legal process, answer that question for you, if I could.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, just to clarify that in the litigation, the judge has already affirmed the easement. He's already acknowledged that the easement exists and the paperwork that has put it into place. And so the easement is not going to go away. The question is the scope of the easement, what uses may be allowed of the easement, and to what extent property can be served by the easement. So the easement exists. It's not going to go away. In my own opinion, your decision tonight is not going to be affected by what the judge does later on. Thank you.
Thank you. That's what I have, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I think I have a couple of questions. First, I heard a lot about water availability, and I guess possibly for Ms. Lopez, is there concerns around water availability and planning for that?
Madam Chair Piscotti, Commissioner Barboa, our commenting sections in Public Works have reviewed this request and have not raised any issues about no access to water. Again, these are technical requirements that if a project could not provide adequate water for the specific project at the development stage, at building permit, they would not get a certificate of occupancy. At the moment, the subject site is not looking at connecting to city sewer and water, and so they would look to having independent systems on site.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me with that. Miss Juanita Garcia, if I may, I think this question is for you. Is there plans? So Shady Lakes is a place that I definitely enjoyed going to as across my lifetime. It's always been a place for families to access and have a affordable place to recreate, right? Do you all have plans? And I just want to commend you, Ms. Garcia, on all the work you've done to prepare and be ready for this. I see that and I see you, so thank you. But do you have plans already in development for like the access? Will the access to Shady Lakes change given under your management?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Barboa, so the intent is to maintain the main entrance that currently exists to Shady Lakes. There will be some configurations to allow for the connection to Shady Lakes to the existing special use permit area. So there will be some modifications there in regards to access.
And I guess when I'm talking, thank you so much, Ms. Garcia, Madam Chair, if I may, I guess I'm talking about access. Is there a change? Do you anticipate big changes in cost?
Yeah.
So also, for example, let me finish real quick because I live right by the used to be Duke's, now Isotope Stadium. And growing up, we would walk there and get in for a quarter on quarter nights and eat a hot dog and bring our own lunch. And we used to build a grill on top of, and the development now has meant that we can't even take in a water bottle. So as a single parent, when I would try and take my kids in, I couldn't do a 4-hour baseball game without packing my own lunch or something. So not that, I mean, you're in the business of business, but I guess I just wonder, have you thought or anticipate big plans around how this is still an affordable for families while it's also a successful business, I guess?
Right. Yes. VARA has considered that, and VARA still wants to maintain that family-friendly environment. And hopefully making it affordable to everybody to use. There will be areas for folks to go and fish and picnic and enjoy the lakes as people do today. So yes, that is the intent, is to continue with that effort.
Okay, thank you again, Madam Chair. If I may, just to close out, I thank you again, Ms. Garcia, and I think I'm really moved by the volunteers and how you're incorporating school and the charter schools and volunteers and wildlife preservation. So thank you for that work. It feels like it's been very thoughtful and intentful in the development.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. So in wrapping up, Elvira, maybe you're the one who can lead us through this about how to vote on each item.
Madam Chair, yes. So each one would be voted on independently, and you do need a super majority to rule in either direction, correct? Or to oppose the appeal. Thank you. And also, if
Okay.
I may, Madam Chair, I do have some minor corrections that I think after so many documents, today I was able to look at it with fresh eyes. If I just may offer just a couple of edits to the findings and conditions. They are not substantive, they are edits. If I may put those forward so that when you do propose a motion, either way, if it is to oppose the appeals, then the findings and conditions for approval of the land use, I would like that to be corrected. May I share those briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, for that, I'll share my screen. Let me bring them over. I'll start with finding condition number 11. Public Works provided a comment basically to allow the use of gravel material as opposed to pavement. And that's often seen in rural areas because it's permeable and consistent with the rural. And I think they just switched their words. Instead of using the gravel where pavement should have been, they used, vice versa. So I can read what it should say. You all can see the edit, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it should read gravel shall be acceptable in lieu of paved roadways as a means of dust mitigation. And it had said gravel shall be acceptable in lieu. I'm sorry, it said pavement. So even I'm getting confused here, but if I can correct that, offer that as a correction. And then also above, I was looking at condition number 1. There are a lot of tracks involved with this project, which is why one of the conditions is to ask that the applicant consolidate as much as possible. And we saw that there was an opportunity to create 3 large tracks to honor the irrigation ditches that are present. So 3 tracks. I did include 1 extra tract in this condition 1 that is asking for the applicant to provide a buffer landscaping and solid screening. I think that was an extra tract. I just am proposing to delete that 1 tract, which is not consistent with what the spirit of this condition is. So it really is just a technical error here. I'm asking to omit track 79D2 MRGCD map 20. However, the point of this condition again is to provide adequate buffer landscaping and a solid screen wall in accordance with the zoning code to protect properties like Ms. Krebs, any properties that are adjacent to the subject site. And I think that is it, just those edits that I noticed at this last hour. Thank you.
Okay. And so just one more
Madam
thing.
Chair?
Oh,
sorry.
sure. Go ahead. I didn't see you on the screen. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Is this the point where we might want to talk about conditions? Is this where we could maybe propose a condition at this point?
Madam Chair Piscotti, Commissioner O'Malley, I believe so.
Okay. One of the concerns I have, and wasn't really highlighted, but I think that this could become a problem, and that is noise. We do have a lot of mixes in the North Valley. I'm actually quite a ways from, I think, the cantina over there on off of Candelaria, but once they ramp up in the summertime, the noise can be really problematic. And of course, it's amplified. I would like to consider, and maybe we could talk with the applicant about not having amplified noise. I think that could be a problem in the future. We've had problems with noise in other parts of the county. That becomes a very big deal. One of the issues that came up, I think it might have involved in litigation, was when the county line was doing some outdoor amplified venue. So if I could have, I guess that would be the question to the applicant. I can't.
Sorry, Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, that also was an issue that was carefully considered The previous SUP application in 2018, we had asked for it, or VARA had asked for it at that point as well, but there was an immediate property owner who was opposed to the additional sound, to the amplified sound. We did talk to these property owners who said that as long as the hours of operation would not go past 10 p.m., they would still, in regards to the sound, that they would be in support of it. We did, discuss the fact that if we had weddings or graduation, retirement parties, that sort of thing, without amplified sound, it would be very difficult to hear, wedding speeches or speeches of any sort. We are also very mindful of the fact that we would want to make sure that any amplified sound is not directed towards the residents immediately adjacent to the site, and more towards the open space to the west. And so we did consider that, and we would hope that it can still remain with this approval.
So I have a question, I'm sorry, for then Mr. Ham. How do you deal with, let's say we have complaints about violation of the noise ordinance? What are the remedies, or what do you have in place now to deal with those issues?
Lucas, I see you raised your hand.
Madam Chair,
Lucas.
Commissioner O'Malley, I'm going to defer to Mr. Tafoya. He really is the expert with regard to noise.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner O'Malley, we have a method of taking in complaints and measuring noise and addressing noise issues. And so for amplified sound, they're not allowed to operate past 10 p.m. Nor are they allowed to operate on Sundays or legal holidays. So it's pretty restrictive as far as amplified sound goes, and we can respond to any complaints that come our way on as far as that goes.
So I guess my question is, let's say you have complaint after complaint. What are the remedies? What can you do about it?
Well, it could affect the SUP, but we could also take that to court as well. But it is a requirement of the SUP, and it could jeopardize that.
Mr. Ham?
Madam Chair, Commissioner O'Malley, just to explain further what Mr. Tafoya was alluding to, is that if we have continued violations of conditions, the planning department can initiate a cancellation procedure to the planning commission and ultimately the board, which would remove the entirety of the use. So said another way, if there was a continued violation of any condition of approval that was harming the public, there is a process by which the county could remove the use from the property.
Okay, so that doesn't have to go to court. It could just be something that could be done administratively and through the committee. Okay, thank you. That's very important. I know it didn't come up as a big, strong objection, but I happen to know that those things can start to get legs, and that could be a problem in the future. All right, thank you. Never mind about the.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Any other questions? I am seeing no questions. And so Elvira, I'm going to call on you again, just about the phrasing of how we vote. So do we vote yes or no on the appeal? Is that the proper format for voting?
Madam Chair Piscotti, if I may defer to my manager, Ms. Catherine Varek, to respond to that. You're on mute, Catherine.
Still on mute?
No, you're okay now.
Okay, all right. So depending on which way you wish to go, you would need to vote on each of the appeals. And then, but ultimately, the decision will be whether or not to uphold the decision of the County Planning Commission to approve this special use permit. So that would be the final outcome. If the commission does decide to go in the direction of upholding that decision, then the 20% rule would apply to that. But you will need to vote on the individual appeals as well.
Catherine, if I may, so a motion can be made to approve the appeal, which would not uphold the CPC land use decision, or a motion could be made to oppose the appeal, which would uphold the CPC land use decision.
Yes,
Correct?
to deny the appeals.
Deny the appeal. So I know it's kind of counterintuitive. It's a little confusing.
Right.
So denying the appeal means upholding CPC decision and therefore supermajority required. Approving the appeal means denying the land use decision by the CPC.
Okay. Okay. So everybody got that? I know we've been here a long time today.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we know what we're voting on before
Sure.
we vote.
And please don't forget either way the recommended edits that I proposed.
Yes. So then with the recommended edits, let us now vote on 5A on that appeal. So all in favor of upholding the appeal, I guess, is there a motion to uphold the appeal and deny the CPC findings, recommendation?
Land use decision.
Land use decision, thank you. Okay, so I am not seeing a motion to uphold that appeal. So that fails. Okay. And so then we move on, right? We don't need the clerk to do anything at this point because that just failed. So moving on to 5B, is there a motion to approve the appeal? Okay, going once, going twice, that fails. 5C, is there a motion to approve the appeal? Okay, that fails. And last but not least, 5D, is there a motion to approve this appeal? Commissioner O'Malley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we're looking at a super majority situation I'm just a little confused legally.
Okay. You know,
Do we need
Enrico, you have your hand up. Did you want to throw something out at this point?
Enrico, you are on silent.
Madam Chair,
Okay,
can you hear me?
now we can, yes.
Traditionally, in the past, the commission would take a position. So if you want to support the recommendation of the County Planning Commission, you would be denying the appeals in every case. And if you wanted to reverse the decision with the recommendation of the County Planning Commission, you would be voting to accept the appeal. So in this case, we usually go case by case. If there is a motion, I'm sorry.
Okay, so do we go back and do I ask for a vote?
Yes, I think
on
you would have to vote to
denying?
deny or uphold the
Okay.
appeal on each case.
Okay,
On
then
the-
we'll just go back. For 5A, there was no motion to approve the appeal, so I will motion
And
to
If anyone wants to
deny.
make a motion
Okay.
if anyone wants to make a motion to deny the appeal.
Okay, I will just make a motion to deny it. Do I have a second? Commissioner Barboa, all in favor of denying the appeal? Okay, and now do we need the roll call vote?
Correct.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll now.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner
deny.
Benson,
Yes, I deny.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye. Okay, so 5B, is there a motion to deny the appeal? Commissioner Benson moves to deny. Is there a second? Commissioner Casada, all in favor, raise your hand. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Please unmute yourself.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson. Commissioner, did I hear you?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
So called.
Appeal number 5C. Is there a motion to deny this appeal? Commissioner Casada, is there a second? Commissioner Benson, all in favor, raise your hand. And Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye.
So called.
And thank you. And finally, 5D, is there a motion to deny this appeal? Commissioner Benson, is there a second? Commissioner Casada, all in favor, raise your hand. And Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Barboa,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Casada,
Aye.
Madam Chair Piscotti.
Aye. And thank you all. Thank you everyone who participated in this. It was a long
you.
haul. I appreciate everybody's input. Our next meeting, Tuesday, June 15, 2021, zoning meeting at 3 p.m. It will be a Zoom meeting, signing of official documents. And if there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Our administrative meeting is next. We're going to have a little cushion of time if you need to go to the bathroom, but get right back here so we can get back to business. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, commissioners.